Good afternoon and good evening to our viewers connecting from around the world. I'm Lyne Sneige, the director of the Arts and Culture Center at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to our panel exploring the impact of this global pandemic on the visual arts sector in the Middle East. This panel is the first public program around our show that is currently up, Art in Isolation, Creativity in Time of COVID-19. The show opened on October 8th and will be up until January 29, 2021, and pays tribute to the experiences and reflections of artists from the Middle East and its diaspora during a period of global crisis. The show is our first ever open call sales show and features 39 artists from 15 countries in the Middle East and its diaspora. The entire show can be found online, though most of it is also hanging now in the MEI Art Gallery, which we are happy to say is now open by appointment. This reopening comes after we've had to shut the gallery from March through September due to the pandemic. We are all very delighted to have beautiful art gracing our gallery walls once again. All of the art is for sale and there is beautiful art that is up for grabs. So please visit and have a look and tell your friends about it. It is on www.mei.edu Arts and Culture Center. You will get the chance to hear about the show in more detail from our curator, Laila Jadallah, who is with us. We are joined by a stellar group of panelists today who will be helping us to better understand how COVID-19 is impacting and perhaps reshaping for many years ahead the visual arts sector in the Middle East. How have artists been impacted by this crisis? And how will they work, market, and sell their art in the future? How will galleries, foundations, and art fairs reinvent themselves to adapt to this new reality that looks like is going to be with us for the foreseeable future? And finally, how might this impact the art market in the region for the years to come? Here to talk about those issues and what we can learn from this extraordinary experience are four people who have been very involved in the visual arts sector in the Middle East. I'm going to introduce them very briefly alphabetically. You can see their full bios on our site. Shireen Atassi. Shireen is the director of the Atassi Foundation for Arts and Culture out of Dubai. Shireen comes from many years of experience in the corporate world before she decided to take a turn in her career and in 2016 established with her family the Atassi Foundation for Arts and Culture, a family non-profit initiative that is dedicated to creating knowledge around modern and contemporary Syrian art and supporting the creative expression of today's generation. Welcome, Shireen. I know it is very late for you in Dubai. We are very appreciative and honored that you have joined us today. Mahmoud El Hajj. Mahmoud is a Palestinian visual artist and teacher. In 2019, he participated in the exhibition programming of intimate terrains for the Palestine Museum in Birzeit. He has exhibited in Palestine and Europe and primarily at the Catan Foundation in Palestine and Orient 2.0 in the Netherlands. Ahla wa sahla, Mahmoud. We are delighted that you are connecting with us tonight from your home in Gaza. Laila Jadallah. Laila is an exhibition producer, curator, and researcher based in DC. Since 2018, Laila has been the managing director of Washington Studio School, a nonprofit arts organization in DC. Laila is also currently an MA candidate in Arab Studies at Georgetown University. Laila, a warm welcome to you. Last but not least, Sepideh Salehi is a multidisciplinary artist born in Tehran who currently lives and works between Washington, D.C. and New York. Sepideh left Iran to attend Accademia di Belle Arti in Florence, Italy. She has exhibited in New York, LA, London, and Italy, and took part in many exhibitions curated by great artists such as Shireen Atassi and other prominent names. Sepideh, we are so pleased and honored to have you with us and in the show. So thank you all for joining us today. We so look forward to your insights, but before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. We look forward to taking audience questions through the Zoom Q&A feature that you all see on your screen. For those calling in by phone or watching our panel on the live stream, you can ask questions by emailing events@mei.edu. If you have any technical issues, please email at events@mei.edu. Feel free to ask a question at any time throughout the panel. I'll keep my eye on your questions and will incorporate as many as possible in our limited time. With that, I would like to get right into our conversation and turn to you, Laila, first. Can you bring the show that you so beautifully curated to life for our audiences? How many categories, pieces are in the show? How many artists, countries? What are the main themes that emerge from the beautiful tapestry that is art in isolation? And I will ask you as well to speak briefly about the selection process in the end. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Lyne, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. So as Lyne mentioned in her introduction, the exhibition began as an open call to artists from the Middle East and the diaspora to submit work in response to the global pandemic. So we sought to investigate how sheltering in place had influenced artists' practice, whether by altering the medium or scale in which they usually work, or by exploring a new subject matter directly related to the pandemic and its impact on where they lived or the region in general. We received over 220 submissions from artists all over the world, which we reviewed over a period of several weeks to select the final 54 works of art by 39 artists. And as Lyne said, we ended with artists from 15 Middle Eastern countries, and we wanted to ensure that we had artists who were in various stages of their careers, and also include a variety of mediums and styles. So the exhibition includes photography, painting, sculpture, video, book art, and audio. And some of the themes that emerged in the exhibition all reflect a myriad of experiences, including ruminations on home, utilizing found materials, gender and sexuality, exploring interior worlds, the politics of mask wearing, loss of life due to conflict and the coronavirus, as well as human connection and satire. So ultimately, I think this exhibition speaks to the ingenuity of artists to be able to channel this difficult period through these incredible works of art that we have the honor of exhibiting in the show, and that viewers can relate to the numerous ways they interpret the shared experience of self-isolation. So, yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I wanted to ask whether you can share with us some of the highlights in the show.
Yes, so I will share just a few of the many incredible works of art that we have in the show to give you all a sense of the styles that we have. So, share my screen so everybody can see. So here we have two works of art. The one on the left is an image from a series organized by Moroccan-Belgian photographer Mous Lamrabat, who used the global pandemic to, during Ramadan, to ask his followers on social media to submit them a self-portrait with their prayer rugs. So it expressed a sense of community during this time of isolation. And the work next to it is a marble sculpture by Iraqi-Italian artist Athar Jaber called A Mask for Life. And he donated these artworks. He donated the sales from this artwork to organizations providing needed supplies to refugees worldwide. This slide has two paintings, and on it, the one on the left is a mixed media work by Iraqi-American artist Sinata that is a continuation of his Arkam series that spoke to the loss of life in Iraq. And he continued this series in reflection to the coronavirus and the global impact that it had on people and the loss of life as well. And the image, the painting on the right is a figurative work by Laila Abdul-Hadi, who called Social Distance. She's a Sudanese artist who employs feminine sexuality to explore cultural and gender issues. And finally, wanted to share a still of one of the video works in the show. This is by an Emirati artist, Fatima El-Fardan, called My Only Objective This Summer is to Get a Tan. And this speaks to more of the satirical work that is represented in the exhibition. And in her work, she reflects on Emirati female identity and stereotypical perceptions.
Thank you, Laila. I mean, as you articulated as much and shared with us as much as you can in this little time, there is a wide range of work in this show. And we were all so happy to receive such a wide sort of range and rich tapestry. There was the colorful and the satirical, and there was the darker and the more reflective and inward looking and whatnot. But for you as a curator, Laila, what does this really speak to, and what did you want?
I think this exhibition really speaks to the ingenuity of artists, and I think artists are always at the forefront of creating space and something new in a challenging time. And also, I believe that people are looking to artists more and more to make sense of what's happening in the world, especially in this very fraught period where a lot of people have suffered. So I think ultimately the message is about the humanity that is found and the different ways that artists and people can relate to the messages that all of those works represented in the exhibition relate to, and perhaps give some meaning or connection to the viewer.
Indeed, I absolutely agree. There was such, despite the wide range of work, there is such a feeling of they are in conversation. Actually, when you walk into the gallery, you can see that. And there is quite a connection of humanity and togetherness in the work. And from there, I would like to move to you, Sepideh. Thank you again for contributing to our show with your beautiful work. We are so happy to have you. How did you experience, before we talk about and delve into your work, how did you experience this period of lockdown, Sepideh, during which you made those two beautiful pieces that we have in the show? How was it to be perhaps, and maybe not, maybe yes, how was it to be in DC and away from your country, which was also a country that was badly hit by COVID? How was it away to be away from friends and family? How different was this experience?
Yeah, it was hard. It's hard, I think, I'm sure, for everyone. But at the same time, when lockdown happened, the first thing, because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she was going to preschool, playing with friends every day, and the playground. So my priorities, I was thinking first of all, I was thinking about her and to protect her emotionally from virus, sure, and also emotionally. So we were going to the trails, to the nature with her. We were doing lots of walking to the nature. And at that time, always I was in touch with my mom and families in Iran and all around the world. And but one of the things during those walks I had in the nature with my daughter, I had my studio always here in my mind, and just thinking about everything, and also thinking because I'm also the child of a revolution and war in Iran. I was 7 years old that happened, revolution following but the 8 years of war. So I was thinking all the time how my parents, they managed to protect us in that time, me, my brothers. And we were in Tehran, so it wasn't all the time war there, but we had many times that they were falling bombs and missiles, they were coming. So we should go out from the city. We should run away or go into countryside in the nature again. So that was the thinking that I was thinking about a lot in the a lot about the nature, that how much this pandemic is really bad, but how much all our humans we are connected with nature, and how has a different influence in our life, the nature. And because those walking with my daughter in the trails just helped us a lot, just to explore everything and talk. And so from here, me, and then thinking about my parents and going to that time from my childhood in Tehran. And because many of my works and also is about the memories and the identity and memories. So when I began to work in the studio, and I have all figures of women, Iranian women that I was working. Then I was thinking I like to do this collage that are from, there are landscape from Tehran, and there are those things that I remember from my childhood, from those times. So incorporated those collage in my work. And yeah, the impact, and the same, me, my husband, my daughter, everyone at home, and it's
Absolutely.
become very difficult every day. So the nature, it was the most important thing. Just
absolutely. It was a relief and a connector, and so many, it reminded us how important this element is. Can I ask Laila to pull up your beautiful work that is part of our exhibition, Art in Isolation? And maybe Sepideh, you can take us and take our audiences and describe what your work that expresses, and maybe talk a little bit about the technique that you use quickly.
Okay, the techniques are photographies. There are pictures that I took, and I print them. I make grids. I work in grids, and I print them, inject print on Japanese paper. And then when I put all these works, and there are not is just one layer. There are a couple of layers of work on top of each other. And so when you see the work from close, maybe you can see other layers, but yeah, that you have to see it from very close. And then I use the printmaking technique that is frottage, and that means that I rub on the work, each piece of work, I rub on prayer stone. I use prayer stone. I use because I really like the Muslim prayer stone, because I really like the pattern and the language. It doesn't matter what is, you can see there, like what is writing, but also the pattern. And because also growing up in Iran, you are surrounded by motifs, Iranian or Islamic motifs. So that is something that it's always coming to my work. And so you can see it. That is about techniques. And there are on wood panels also. And
tell us, what is the main message of the work?
Yes, these works, there are, as I said also before, many of my works that are mostly about identity and memories. And here I see this figure this woman, I can see her like a mother, like somebody that's lots of power, the power that mother has, and the love and affection. And the same time, in the landscape you can see in her hands. That is the landscape, the picture from landscape in Tehran, around the countryside in Tehran, the mountains and the skies. And then this woman has affection and love and wants to hug, but there is nobody to hug. You know, and this is something that we really also now, we really need just to hug the loved ones, you know. Yeah, this is
human longing and human. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sepideh, for sharing your work. Thank you, Laila, for helping us do that. Mahmoud, I want to turn to you. Your work in the show is striking and reflects on so many themes that are related to the show. But before we talk a little more about your work, I want to ask you to share with us your experience. You are in Gaza, and this might not have been the first, sadly, confinement or lockdown. However, how different was this perhaps confinement to you when most of the world was experiencing this at the same time as well? How might this have affected your thinking or your work?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. I always say if I lived in a place other than Gaza, I will never be an artist, because the challenges and the bad situation was a motivation for me to practice the art. And as a Palestinian artist, I consider the art is a soft resistant act, and I can make messages, and I think it's one of my duties toward my cause and my community is making messages about them. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, I think it's big responsibility for artists, for any artist, to make the art inside a place like Gaza, because of shortage in materials and tools, and living in a place with a blockade. You cannot leave Gaza to see the new things in art, because the art, you know, it's an updated field. Every day you can find the new things. So the blockade prevent us to see this beautiful things around the world. And I would like to mention here that Gaza is 365 kilometers. It's similar to be Detroit in Michigan, but with 2 million population. So you can imagine if you live in Detroit for 30 years without leaving it, you will start feeling it prison, not a city. All these challenges and all these problems makes me ready to accept and deal with COVID-19 and the healthy blockade status. But for me also, I would like to talk about how the COVID affects on my community and how it changed the need of my community. Sorry. Before 3 years, with my colleagues in Palestinian Red Crescent Society and with my friends from Netherlands, from Hope Foundation, we made a great progress with the local society to let the people in Khan Yunis area, in Gaza Strip, consider the art the most important tool for the children to build their characters and to express about themselves by the art. But COVID prevent us to meet the children physically, and that how I can say it, this is a problem for us now. We cannot reach the children because of the electricity problems. There's no a lot of smart devices, computers, and that.
Yes. Thank you, Mahmoud. I would like us to pull up your work. Maybe Laila can help us once again to pull the two works that you have in the show. They are indeed striking. And I would like you to tell us a little bit what the works are expressing. This is clearly also mixed media and a montage. And maybe you can talk a little bit to us about, what are they expressing, and then the technique that you have used in this. Laila, I do not see the shared screen.
Sorry.
Me too.
It didn't work for some reason. Okay.
All right, we're going to try again.
Okay.
Okay, here we are.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I tried to express about my lifestyle during the blockade and the pandemic, and I tried to talk a little about the real problems in Gaza by using the blister sheets. I tried to create alternate worlds because I believe the problem is not about COVID-19 only. It's about many things like overpopulation, siege, hunger, and the clean water and poverty. We can't talk about this until tomorrow. So
there's quite a bit of mental health as well, right?
Yeah,
you use
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When I see the reaction from people from outside Gaza, I start really, and I'm sorry for that, I start loathing because I live in this status for since I was a child, since 20 years, for example, and but I told there's a voice in my head was talking about it's a good chance to tell the people outside Gaza your story. So when I see the people, they are start following the news about vaccine and the medicine companies. Well, I found it very interesting to use something related to this, and I start thinking about the materials that you see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not hard to find these materials because in Gaza we are suffering from anxiety and stress. So you can find blister sheets inside the pockets of anyone in the street. We use this drugs to make our life continue normally or something like that. So when I start thinking about these materials, I asked my family members to give me what they have about medicine stripes, medicine blister sheets, if empty or it's not empty. When I get this, these materials, I start taking photos for it. Then I start the process of transformation by using software Adobe Photoshop. I start cropping the images and I start to arrange it regularly to
give that effect of urban density as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then I start thinking to blend it with real images from Gaza to express about all the problems that I talked about before. And I always like to use the light and shadow filters because it gives the work the texture, and you can see if you don't know it's a photo, you will start feeling it's a sculpture or installation or something like relief, you can touch.
Yes,
Yeah,
it has,
you can touch it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Mahmoud.
thank
Indeed,
you so
your message goes far and wide through your work.
yeah.
Shireen, I want to turn to you and pivot a little bit away from our show and ask how it has been also for you in Dubai, running a foundation and that mostly collects supports Syrian artists. How has this period been for you, for the foundation, and the artists you are in touch with? And I know that you've done some things to try and support them. Can you tell us how
Yeah.
it's been for you?
I mean, if I take it from the very beginning, our position is quite unique in the sense that we are a foundation. It's a family foundation, as you said, that my parents and I set up in 2016, but we're registered in Liechtenstein. We work on Syrian art because we come from Syria and we have a long history in the arts and culture in Syria, but we live in Dubai. So we're quite schizophrenic in a way. But that doesn't mean that we haven't, forever we have had avenues of working with artists. Now, the interesting point is we don't have a building, we don't have an exhibition space, we don't have a brick and mortar base. So everything we've always done has been either in partnership with specific venues, like we've partnered with the Sirkal Avenue for exhibitions at least once a year ever since we incepted. We collaborated with the British Museum and Shubbak Festival for some stuff, but really we've always had quite a focus on our online presence. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that we weren't affected, because comes March 2020, we had no plans for any exhibitions in this year, to be honest. We were locked down. I'm in Dubai and I'm thinking, okay, everyone is all over the place. So what do? I start building my archive, because I had heaps of material from the Atassi gallery, my mom's gallery in Damascus. And we start digitizing and cataloging. I mean, it was digitized already, but it was a lot of cataloging. And I'm like, okay, but this is going to go through a couple of months and we'll go back to normal. But of course not. And the more we talked with the artists, the more we felt that they were not only isolated because of the lockdown, but they're isolated from their audiences as well. You have to remember, in Syria, they're very isolated. And I feel with what Mahmoud was saying in every bit of my body, because you're truly isolated. The internet connection is all over the place. The electricity is all over the place. The material to work with is all over, is not available. So not only in Syria, but also when you talk about those who are in diaspora, they're far away from their audience. They're far away from what's going back home. So, and few of them are represented by galleries. Obviously, everyone is closed. Their, shows are cancelled. So we decided to take that as an opportunity and say, okay, we didn't have an exhibition in the pipeline. What we're going to do is we're going to go crazy and put an auction together. And the auction was, as I said to you before, was not the point of the auction was not really to play on the price. So it was not a traditional auction in the sense. You found emerging artists alongside the very well established ones. And the idea was really to give an overall view of the Syrian art scene today, both in Syria and in diaspora. So each one of them was like a little piece in a bigger, much wider jigsaw. And for me, that kind of really talked to me. But at the same time, we knew that the times were quite difficult on everyone. So the price point was also set at a lower point to enable younger generation or smaller collectors to purchase. The other thing we did during lockdown, by the way, I just remembered, alongside the archive cataloging, we actually launched our page on Google Arts and Culture, which was a great initiative. It's a great platform, and that gives us quite a lot of reach. So I think it's been crazy, to say the least, but I think it was in a way an eye opener to a lot of things. not just from my perspective as a foundation, but also from the artist perspective. I think it was an eye-opener on many levels.
Thank you, Shireen. I'm going to ask you to give us even a broader perspective because you sit in Dubai, and Dubai, all of us know, it's a big hub for the visual arts sector in MENA. So what are you, in a sense, how do you think things have played out locally? And, what is the impact for local and regional on COVID? Who do you think is most impacted by this? I know galleries are impacted, fairs are impacted, but I mean, from where you're sitting.
Clearly, yeah. I think everyone was badly impacted, and it took us a bit of I think it took everybody some time to kind of wake up from that shocking situation where everyone is locked up, shows are being cancelled and what have you. But I think in the Middle East specifically, it has a unique position, and the arts and culture sector has just highlighted its fragility in a way, and on many levels. I think it's the case everywhere in the US and Europe and everywhere, but specifically in the Middle East, it takes a completely different dimension. There are no cultural policies. Cultural philanthropy is unheard of. There's a handful of organizations that are making grants to support artists. So really what happens is it falls back to the individuals to actually pull themselves together. So yes, the galleries have had to close shows. A lot of them moved to online viewing rooms, but how many viewing rooms are there going to be? I mean, and that kind of opens up a Pandora box, because it opens you up to, on the, it's a flip of the coin, I guess. It depends on which way you're looking. It either opens you up to competition from, from galleries in Honolulu for that matter, or it also opens you up to new audiences that would not have been able to see your work if they weren't in Dubai at the time of your show. So I think everyone took quite a bit of time to reconsider, rethink our goals and how we're going to go about life in general. And I don't think it's easy. It's not easy on the artists. It's not easy on the galleries. It's not easy on the institutions. But I think the current status, from my perspective, has just highlighted the importance of everyone working together. And when we're talking about, certain initiatives, I mean, I was if you look at the UAE, for instance, it's probably one of the very few countries that have a cultural, kind of a cultural policy. They pledged $400,000 to acquire works from UAE artists. And I think this is brilliant. But then you've got the vast majority of the rest of the Middle East who do not have access to that kind of thing. Those resources. Right. And you have to remember, the year has been terribly difficult. I mean, the explosion in Beirut has impacted everyone. Yes. The financial woes in Beirut has impacted all the galleries, because all the collectors, a bunch of, a big percentage of them are in Beirut. So yeah, it's been
absolutely
interesting.
And I want to come back to this conversation in our next. I want to come back to the impact on the art market as well and whatnot, and get your perceptions. Before I move us to our next phase of the conversation, which is, we've talked about COVID and its impact. Now we want to talk about looking ahead, right? How is this going to affect us on the long term, and what can we learn from it? But before I move us onto that, let me just weave in one or two questions from our audience. Has the pandemic and the lockdown modified artists' choice of the medium that they use, more and less of anything? Very quickly, let me go to Sepideh. You are muted.
Yes, not with me, not that much.
Yeah. Thank you. Mahmoud, you've spoken. Do you have anything to add for that? Have you had to use more or less of something? You are muted, Mahmoud.
Yeah, it's already I live in shortage status.
Correct.
There is not a lot of materials, but with 360 kilometers, I can found many things. But with COVID, I start searching in my building. So the space is less than before. So
Yes.
COVID, yes, modified.
We all had an
Yeah.
inward, suddenly
Yeah.
our worlds became more inward. Just
Yeah.
one last question before we move on. Sepideh, this is perhaps something you've spoken about, the parallels between the pandemic and the war. Is it, you think, the same thing? And did it trigger the same kind of defense mechanism? Can you just quickly speak about this, because I do want us to move on.
Yeah, to compare this war and the
Pandemic.
I thought, me and my friends, Iranian, we talked and talked about it a lot, especially me, I was thinking about it, but I think this COVID is really bad, but I think the war is something else. War is horrible. This is nature, but the war, I think in the war, the people, they're killing each other, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really
Anybody who's lived through war would agree with you, absolutely, Sepideh. Let's move on.
Can I just add one little thing on
yes,
this point?
Please, Shireen.
Sorry, I'm so
go
sorry,
ahead.
Lyne.
No, go ahead.
You know what? I think it also makes a very big difference when the entire world is going through it. Whereas in a war, or if you're in Gaza, you are going through that. It's you and your community are going through that. Whereas in the pandemic, you're looking at the entire world going through it together, and it just gives it a completely different perspective, because you're no longer inward looking only when the entire world is going through it, you know.
Absolutely, there is this globalness and this togetherness.
Yeah.
I mean, we were both isolated and connected in a very strange way, right?
Very strange ways.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Shireen, for that thoughtful interjection. I want to move to our second frame of the conversation and have us all together explore how might the visual arts sector get reshaped? How might sort of artists, galleries, and foundation, and even the art market be impacted in the long run? But more importantly, maybe how might we all learn from this, so that we can move forward? And for that, I want to go quickly first to our artists, because they are at the core of that, right? We're talking about visual art, and without their work, there is no visual art. So I want to go to Sepideh first. And Sepideh, here's my question to you. What are the things that for you changed as an artist, whether in the way you think or in the manner in which you need to operate as an artist now in order to create, market, or sell your work in this new reality that is perhaps going to stay with us?
Yeah. So I'm an artist. So my love is this. I work, I create as much as I can, that this is who I am. But sure, the market and many other things are important. But about the market in the future, for example, during this pandemic, I was fortunate. I have curators and galleries in New York and in LA. I could sell work, and I have inquiries that people from Instagram they saw my works and they just sent me message, and they got work. So I think I was fortunate. And the other things, I think many people, everyone working from home. So when everybody is at home and they see also walls, maybe they are empty, they are thinking to do something or support artists. Also, I think for example, there were shows that I had, they canceled and they postponed, and we still don't know when they're gonna be. But many things now is in computer, it's easier. You can reach many things. There are very good workshops, and also all the exhibition. And that is a good thing, but at the same time, I think we don't have the human touch and the contact to each other. And this is what I can think about.
Well, can I ask you, just before I move on to Mahmoud, so for your process, you said you're an artist and you focus on creating work and on getting inspired. Anything that you think from this period that we need to hang on to and not lose if we go back to a more normal? situation? Anything that you feel that has brought some
lots of anxiety and stress.
I did not want to go there. No. All right. Let me turn to Mahmoud. Mahmoud, I want to get your views on that. What are the things that have changed for you in this particular time? I know that you are coming from a situation that has many layers and complications already. But if we were to focus on this new situation of the world globally, of the art world globally, is this bringing any new thinking to your work? Or are there maybe any opportunities to think about? Is this making you feel perhaps more connected in any way?
Yeah, there is a lot of a changings happen last month during the pandemic, and most of these changes is positive for me. For example, I start feeling that I am equal with the other artists from outside Gaza. I can reach them easily. I can see their work, and I can talk with them easily. Also, I think I got many opportunities like meeting you today, and I know about how to think and how to give my artwork, for example, the international character, to make it acceptable for different people from outside Gaza. Also, for example, I get an opportunity before 3 weeks in Norway to talk about the art as resilience. I know about new things, and I talk about many things in this event, and it's a new space for me. I didn't expect before I will start talking about myself in Norway, in Tromsø. So it's positive changes, but I think there's a problem for me to sell my artwork because maybe there's no art market in Gaza, or there's no contact points with people like to collect the art from Gaza. And I would like to mention here, before 1.5 years, we made an account on Artsy, for example, to sell our artworks, but we didn't succeed because the high fees, and it's without benefit for us. So you can imagine that.
Yes, but I can understand also how this new reality brought made some connections that were before perhaps not in our purview. And right, because everybody is online, it makes it so much more possible for a lot of communities for whom mobility is an issue to suddenly feel connected and part of the conversation. Whereas before, we were not perhaps focused on that ability or to overcome those barriers in this way. Let me zoom out a little bit and go to you, Shireen, in this conversation. You are the voice of the institution on this panel. And, how in this sort of, looking ahead, how are you at the foundation thinking about the manner in which you will perhaps operate in the future? Might this have prompted you to change your strategy, your thinking, your priorities? And I mean, this new reality is prompting a lot of the galleries and the fairs, to reinvent themselves, to figure out how they're going to come back. Really, what are your really sitting at the hub of all this for the Middle East? what is guiding that thinking? Is really this online hybrid model the only model? What is the thinking?
Again, I'm talking about myself. It's too much of a responsibility to talk about everyone else, right? Um, Listen, this online hype is very, very important. It opened doors to a lot of people. It requires the right skills. However, I think there's so much going on online. We're all kind of competing for screen time from everyone else. So when you're talking about the big guys, you can always almost you can almost be sure that they're going to have people listen to them. But for people like me, I'm a small family foundation. I need to dig far deeper than the big players, right? Because I'm a smaller player. I think the connectivity and the online presence is fundamental. It does not change for me. It's not any different from what I was doing before. However, there's one major kind of shift, which is to focus more. And my look has always been very strongly on the historical context of Syrian art. So we always thought there was a lot of gaps in documenting historical trajectories of Syrian art, and we were focused on that. And I think now the shift is really, you know what, there's something a little bit more relevant here. And it's something a little bit more pressing at the moment, and that's the artists themselves. And it's not just the artist in helping them sell their work and show their work and what have you, but it's also building the skill set for them for the future. For us and for them. I'm not saying I know it all and I've figured it out. I've figured it all out, because I haven't. But from in my today, when I think about our future plans, I'm thinking there's going to be a bigger role that I need to play in today's contemporary scene than I have done over the past 4 years. I think the fairs and the biennials and all of that will probably have a different set of challenges for the future. But from my perspective, yeah.
Definitely.
It kind of shifted a little bit, yeah.
Shireen, I want to go back to something that you've touched upon that had to do a little bit with the art market, with the auction that you have organized, and what you're seeing from where you are sitting in Dubai. How, in your opinion, has the art market been affected or not? And what is your projection? I mean, we're hearing different things, right? We're hearing from some people, some voices are saying that this has somehow made the art market in the Middle East so much more accessible to some people, for them to acquire and enjoy art the way it should be, to put it in their homes and whatnot, which perhaps in the past before COVID was like out of reach. And we are seeing also some auctions taking place where the art is still very. Do you have any sense of how the art market has been impacted and what might be the long-term impact?
Yeah, I think definitely there's an element of the Middle Eastern art market becoming a lot more open to the world, right? Because everything has gone online. I still think that the art market in the Middle East is at its infancy. It takes a lot more for it to gain the wisdom of the market dynamic of any other market, art market around the world. I definitely think within the Middle Eastern artists, there are the stars. They will always be at that price point. They will never go back to what they were prior to 2006, let's say, when Art Dubai started and Christie's came to town and Sotheby's and what have you. We will never go back there, right? And those stars will always be stars and they will be what have you. But I think it has created a level of humility, I think, the past year in the art market, so to speak, It has kind of carried quite a bit of its weight on the artist because now they want to sell, and on the smaller. So what you see is the smaller, like at least from what I've seen from the one auction that I ran, it's actually the small collectors who were buying. It was the young generation who was buying. It was not the usual big collectors, and that kind of made me not just happy, but ecstatic, because, oh my God, we are preparing for future collectors. And, they're young and they're hardworking, and we're talking about the $1,000 and the $2,000. It doesn't have to be in the tens of thousands. It's, and I think this is really beautiful. I think this is really where we're seeing a slight shift, in the sense that once these works become available, they will find a buyer. You won't find a buyer for $100,000 piece every day in the Middle East, but you will find for a $2,000 and $5,000, and they're usually young and educated, and they're, passionate. So
that is indeed so, and that is indeed so promising for both, for the art market, for the artists, for the collectors, for us all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Laila, I want to move on to you. You've heard from our artists, you've heard from Shireen about some of the things that might be shaping our way forward in the arts in the region. As a curator, but also as someone who has been involved yourself in many different art spaces, such as galleries, museums, shared spaces, even artist exchange programs. Mm-hmm. How do you think might this affect the visual arts sector from your perspective? How can art spaces curate and organize themselves so they can do both, keep themselves afloat, but also keep the conversation that is so important between artist and the artist and the community? How can they do that? What are we seeing more of in your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shireen touched on so many points about the shifts in, organizations having to adjust, and curators as well having to adjust how they work with artists. And I think in a way this pandemic kind of equalized the playing field a little bit. And also, as Shireen mentioned, it also created more competition. But at the same time, I feel like people are really realizing that collaboration is much more of a possible way forward, whereas before there is more of a sense of having to protect your visitors or your community and not sharing as much, where now, because resources are more tight for a lot of organizations, that there's more flexibility in that sense. So I think kind of continuing kind of the experimentation that I think this time has caused a lot of people who work in the art field to kind of examine how to connect with artists, bringing artists together, like Sepideh and Mahmoud from two very different places together in one place, and also in terms of marketing. And I think one very important point that Shireen brought up was putting the artists more as the focus. And I hope that continues moving forward as well, because I think ultimately that's what it should be about, is that as curators or anyone who is working with artists, that ultimately the focus should continue to be on them. So we saw a lot of those auctions this summer, and group exhibitions in support of artists, or grants in support of them. So I really hope that kind of continues, and finding a way to have a balance of using the online space in connection with your physical space as well. And that way you don't lose all these new people you've been able to connect with because of being virtual, but you can still be a center of your community as well.
Thank you so much, Laila. Just to close on, Laila, one more comment. Do you see from your from your perspective as a curator as well, any changes that might, from the consumer side, right, from the audience side, this has brought up a whole new way for people to enjoy and look at art, and we've seen some sort of trends come out. What do you think about that? What are you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sepideh and Shireen both touched on the fact that there are younger collectors who are interested and they're sitting in their homes wanting to have artwork and also to support artists. So I think this virtual world kind of took some pressure off of feeling like you have to understand a work of art immediately. And you could go back and look at it multiple times online, for instance, or interact with the artist over email or Instagram, or something that doesn't have as much pressure as perhaps it would in person for somebody. So in that sense, I think there's a big shift as well.
Absolutely. And we have seen that this has often been referred to as slow viewing. With that, and with this fantastic conversation, I think our time has come to an end. All good things have an end, and I want to thank our esteemed panelists for being with us today and for sharing their experiences, their thoughts, their insights. I want to thank you all for connecting with us and for engaging with us through the Q&A. I'm sorry we weren't able to get as many as we wanted, but we got a few in. Please visit the exhibition in person if you are in DC or online. Keep an eye on our future programming and follow us on Twitter at MEI